Check out this beautiful Congrats Grad graduation card. So I made a layered tools dad card. And it was really popular, so I went ahead and took that same design concept and made one for graduation, and here it is. So we're gonna go ahead and put it together, and I've got some tips for you on aligning all of the layers to make it really easy. Hey there, my crafty friend. I'm Christy from Crafty Christy's Creations, and I'm here to help you master your silhouette with tutorials, cut files, and project inspiration. So let's dive into all the fun. All right, we'll leave that there for a reference, and then here's all the pieces. So I've got the inside white pieces that go on the inside. You can see here the inside of the R, the A, and the D. That's what these pieces are. So you want to make sure you save those when you go and weed out this top layer. And then to put it together, I put the shiny piece, which this time I'm going to use a foiled silver instead of gold. That'll be the back layer. Then your black layer, or the layer that has the graduation caps and the graduation scroll, that'll go next. And then your next layer here is the one that has the balloons and the stars. And then your top layer here is the one that says just empty and says grad. So that's how that's going to go together. So what I like to do is start with the kind of second layer from the top, so the balloons and the stars, and I'm going to add these center pieces right on the R, the A, and the D. So that's what I like to do as my first step. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my letters. So we'll do the D. And I'm just putting a little bit of glue on here. Bear with me as I get my glue bottle to get flowing. Okay, there we go. I like to just use my fingertips. You could certainly use like a pick-me-up tool, and then I'm just gonna turn this sideways. Makes it a little bit easier for me to see. I'm gonna start by lining up this bottom corner here. I'm just going to line that up with the white right on top, and then just try to get that as straight and aligned as nicely as I can. The nice part about using liquid glue is that you have time to move things around. And then when you're happy with the placement, go ahead and give that a really good press to get that held in position. And then I'm going to do the same thing. The next one is this tall piece here. That's the center of the A. And I'll just add a little bit. So you don't need a lot of glue, just a tiny little bit. And if you get too much glue, you can come in with your finger, wipe some away. Of that up here. Okay, and then we'll get that added here. So again, I'm going to start by lining up that bottom of the A. I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to see what I'm doing here as I line things up. But you can see how that bottom piece here is lined up, and then the tip of that triangle is just going to come all the way over here to the side. And then again, once you're happy with your placement, you can go ahead and press that down, give it a good press. And then the last little piece to add is the top part of the R. And I'm just going to use the extra glue on my finger here. That should be enough. Again, I'm going to start at the bottom and just line up that part here. and then you've got the curved area and then the straight side. So I'm going to try to just line up that straight edge and just maneuver that into place. Okay, so we've got those pieces layered on. Like I said, that's the thing I like to do first so I don't lose those pieces. And now that's all set up. Now we can go ahead and add my top layer. So it's just gonna layer right on top. Everything should line up very nice. And all I'm gonna do is come around. You don't wanna use too much glue because you will see that show up in the layer. So I'm just gonna spread a light layer of glue in between and around all of my letters. And then trying to get just a quick little dot in between all of these layers to make sure everything's gonna stick nicely. So sometimes just a little tap in the right area is really all you need. And then we can just do a line in between. Now these parts of the G were still attached here, so we can go ahead and add that glue. We'll add a line along the edge and the bottom. And then just be careful, you don't want any of that glue. You don't want to do too much because you don't want any of it to spit out around the edges. Okay, I think that looks good. So now what I'm going to do is just take this top piece and I'm just going to lay that right on top. Now I tried putting this in like a stamp positioner to see if that would help me get things lined up nicely. That is definitely an option if you struggle lining up your corners. But I like to just take my time and try to line up one corner at a time. And then what you can do, because these are all the same shape, you can just tap that on your surface to get the bottoms lined up. And then you can just kind of scoot them into place where they belong. And then I'm just going to come through, make sure all of these pieces are lined up correctly. And then I'm just going to go through and press down the centers of all the letters. And it seems like this red piece got cut a little bit too big. So I will say that there's some updating going on right now with Silhouette, and I did just update to the latest version of the software when I cut some of these layers. So that there could be a little something going on there with that. So what I'm gonna do, just to make sure that you can see there's quite a bit of extra there. It's not the fault of the file. You can see here everything turned out fine. It's just my machine went a little goofy, so I'm just gonna cut off right on the edge of that white. You could certainly use a paper trimmer instead. But I'm gonna try to be very careful and only cut this red layer right at the bottom there. So you could certainly do this too if you, after you've got everything laid down. If they aren't quite lined up evenly, you can certainly come through and just trim off any little extras. And then we've got a little bit at the top here that I'm gonna trim off as well. And this is just gonna give it a nice, crisp, clean look. That top might be a little bit too thin. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to cut that off as well. So this one's so thin, this might be a good job for the paper trimmer. But again, like I said, you should not have to do this. I think it's just my machine had some cutting issues. These are all the same size in the file. Okay, that looks a little bit better. We just cut ever so slightly thinned off the top. Okay, so those two layers look really good. And you can see I've got a little bit of warping going on from all that glue. When we're all done, I definitely recommend setting this under something heavy and let that dry really well that way. So now we can go ahead and flip this one over. And then we've got the black layer that we're gonna add on top of that. So what I'm gonna do is come around, put my glue on here, just the same as you did with the white layer. I'm gonna do a thin amount of glue around all of the letters. And then I'm gonna just do a couple little dots of glue in these centers to make sure all the pieces of the words are gonna be stuck down. And then we'll do a line. We can go down the center of the G. Go all the way down the side. And then up this side here, and then a couple little dots in the center there. That looks pretty good. And then again, we're gonna take that black layer and I'm just gonna line things up really nicely. Oh, and I have one little spot that didn't get weeded out. There we go. So now I can just lay this on there and a little glue right here. These busy designs, it's easy to miss little spots. It's not a big deal if you do. They'll still just line up nicely. I'm just gonna line up those letters. So now that I know that I might have some cutting issues, I'm just gonna line up the center of these letters. That's what I'm aiming for. Get those lined up nicely, and then everything else should fall into place. And then I can just press those around as I need to. And before I press everything down really well, I'm gonna check from the front, because really it's the front that matters. And make sure that all looks great. So now I can go ahead and just press down around all of my letters. And we're just gonna make sure all that's pressed on really nicely. Okay, so we've got 3 of our 4 layers put on there, and you can see how that's really building up the scene. And then for our last layer here, I've got this silver foil. So with the foil, you wanna make sure that you don't have to move it around too much, because you don't want to end up streaking that foil. So I'm gonna try to be not putting too much glue on here, because that's one way to prevent smudging. And then I'm gonna try to really line things up where I want them before I lay anything down. And that'll help with the smudging as well. And then if I have any spots where there's too much glue, because I'm gonna put it on that foil, I will come through and just kind of try to spread out some of that glue so that I don't end up ruining that pretty foil. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of thin out this area in here. some of these little spots right here. Since I'm already got a messy finger, might as well just try to spread these out a bit. Again, this is just helping prevent any of that smearing that can happen on that foil. Okay, that looks pretty good. There's not a ton on there. And then because this is a blank piece, I kind of like to just stand my pieces up here a little bit, line up those edges. There's no cutouts. And then just try to get that lined up nicely at the bottom. And then I'm just gonna press from the center and then press out. And I'm just gonna take my time on that foil. It is gonna take a little bit longer for everything to really stick down on there. So I am just gonna take my time pressing all these areas down really well, making sure that they stick. And you'll notice I did not add any glue behind any of the elements that are on the inside here. You can if you want to, but I don't find it to be necessary. They do kind of stick up a little bit, but that kind of just helps give it some dimension, especially when you have that foil behind it. Having that extra dimension is really fun because it just helps it so that it looks, it moves a little bit. It gives some shadow effects on that foiled area in the background. So I really don't worry about gluing down any of those layered pieces on the inside. Okay, so we've got this all done now. All we have to do is attach it to our card base. And for this card, because you know the 4 layers, it's so heavy, I went ahead and did my card base out of 110-pound cover stock. This is just a personal preference. You could certainly just do this on your normal cardstock. That would not be a problem. And then I have it's got the score line on there. I'm just folding on that score line. And because this is that good cover stock, it's thicker, I am gonna make sure to use a bone folder or a straight edge of some sort and really come in and crease that score line really well. And again, we've got a goofy edge there. So let's see which side is correct. That short edge is not correct. So I think we can hide that short edge on the front and I think nobody will notice. That's what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go ahead and just glue up this entire front piece here. Again, this missing of the sizing here is, I think just the machine. I've been using the electrostatic mat with the Cameo 5 doing this, and I think I just have some adjusting to still figure out. And again, with that update too, there could be some alignment issues with that. So I promise there's nothing wrong with the file itself. This card I made quite a while ago, and it turned out perfect. So again, nothing wrong with the file. I'm just having some issues with my silhouette right now. So to line this one up, because the front is a little bit short, I'm just gonna put it upside down on the table, and then I'm just gonna hold here, line up the sides, and then fold up the top. I think that's gonna be the easiest way to make sure that they're lined up how they should be. And then you can see you've got that little bit of miscut on my part. And then I can go ahead and just fold this down, give it a good press. Again, we're trying to attach that to the back of the foil, so it's gonna take a minute to get a nice adherence there. So I'm just gonna really give that a good press. Okay, so here is your completed card. You can see all that beautiful shine that comes through. Typically, when I have areas that have glue, I will go in with a little tool and try to clean that up. On this foil paper, I'm not going to do that because it's actually just going to make it worse. So I'm just going to let those spots, they'll dry clear so they won't be quite as noticeable. Instead of me going in and trying to scrape them away, we'll actually make it more noticeable. But here you go, here's your Congrats Grad card. And then you've got plenty of room on the inside to write your personal message. So this one is the red, black, and silver. This one here was orange, black, and gold. And you can see how the different colors really make such a difference using the silver and the gold. So there you have it.